Sorry about that. Can the Labour Party any longer be called a workers' party? The Socialist Party says no. The Labour Party agrees with us. Rachel Reeves, in front of a meeting of business people, said the Labour Party is the natural party of British business. At last year's Labour Party conference, there were more business people at it than worker delegates. Just before the general election, Labour received its biggest ever donation of £4 million from a hedge fund that involved the oil and gas industry, the arms industry and the private health industry. And that hedge fund is based in the Cayman Islands and pays little or no tax. Before the general election, Labour refused to tax the rich, refused to end the Tory two-child benefit cap, refused to support a £15 per hour minimum wage, and refused to put back into public ownership the rail, water and energy companies. What has happened in the 100 days since the general election? Labour has attacked our kids and pensioners, taken the mick out of us with their sleaze, and worryingly used violence against dissenters. Your ex-councillor in West Green and Northgate, now Crawley's Labour MP, Peter Lamb, voted to keep the Tory two-child cap benefit, thus keeping 1 million kids in poverty. He voted to end the Tory cap on what you had to pay for care costs. Now your family will have to lose every amount of money or assets to pay for rip-off private care costs. He also voted to scrap the winter fuel allowance for millions of poor pensioners like me just above the pension credit limit. Pensioners face freezing or dying. You have blood on your hands, Mr. Lamb. Labour's actions are objectively evil. Let's not beat about the bush. Lamb's justification for robbing pensioners is disgusting. He said, if pensioners choose not to put on the heating after several above inflation increases in the state pension, then that's their choice. I say pensioners needed the increase in the pension and the £300 winter fuel allowance because of the cost of living crisis facing everyone. What do you know about the cost of living crisis, Mr. Lamb? We pay you £91,000 a year, £20,000 a year to rent a London property. We pay for that property to be fully furnished, and we pay £9,000 a year for bills, including energy bills. MPs ring up higher energy bills than us because they have the heating on full blast because they know we pay the bill. Residents in Crawley have called for Peter Lamb to resign. We call for Peter Lamb to resign. Labour take the mick out of us with their freebies. Starmer got £32,000 for suits, 16,000 of which were lyingly claimed for office costs. Most workers never get £32,000 a year ever in their lifetimes. Socialist Party candidates in the general election, including me, stood on the slogan, working class MPs on a worker's wage. No one else in this general election stood on that principal position. Our members in the 1980s, then in the Labour Party, stood on the platform working class MPs on a worker's wage. They got elected and they did only take a worker's wage. I have stood for my area, Bewbush, on the promise that if elected, I would give the council's allowance to community projects that residents wanted. I make that same pledge for West Green and Northgate. I said earlier about violence by Labour. At this year's Labour Party conference, Reeves was heckled. A young man said, "Cut all arms sales to Israel." This was in response to the fact that only 30 out of 350 contracts were suspended. The parts for fighter jets used to kill innocent Palestinians were still allowed. The young man was forced out of the building by the throat by a Labour councillor. That's Labour's record of shame. What does the Socialist Party stand for? The situation in local areas, local councils, 1 in 5 councils face bankruptcy because of the 40% cut in government funding since 2010. Crawley is not excluded from that fate. Working councils have cut every service they are not legally advised to give. We say no cuts. Use reserves and borrowing powers to fund what we need. Demand Labour refunds us the £18 million government money cut since 2010. We call for a people's budget to meet the needs of the community and tackle the cost of living crisis. Reinstate the winter fuel allowance. In the meantime, use the housing fund to give grants to pensioners losing the allowance. Put the energy companies back into public ownership, but this time under democratic workers' control. This will permanently cut the cost of energy costs for everyone. Freeze council tax, rents and charges. Labour has put up council rents 7% and 7.7% over the last 2 years, despite having £14 million reserves in the housing revenue account. Free school meals for all children. Build low-cost council housing for all. And in regards to that housing situation, a couple of years ago I organised a petition, End So-Called Affordable Housing, Borrow to Build Council Houses at Council Rents, using housing cooperatives to cheapen the cost. 1,000 plus people signed the petition and therefore the council had to hear the petition. The Labour councillors refused to vote for the petition. They took the P out of us by voting merely to note the petition. Tory councillors opposed this and wanted more information before voting. The meeting ended with the petition not having been voted for or against. I didn't give up, and this year I asked the Labour group leader, Michael Jones, and the Tory group leader, Duncan Crowe, to meet me to actually vote one way or the other. Michael Jones refused to meet with me. Duncan Crowe agreed to meet. We had 3 meetings, which resulted in him putting a motion at the 27th of March 2024 council meeting, which basically mirrored my petition. Now the Labour councillors had to vote for or against. They voted for because they didn't dare vote otherwise. However, whether they implement the motion is another matter. We have to push them. You can see how the meeting went by going on the council's YouTube, Crawley Council meeting, 27th March 2024. This is the 6th richest country in the world. The money is there. Taxing the super rich will raise billions. My union secretary, Unite Sharon Graham, has called for a wealth tax. If this was put in Parliament and we had MPs, we would not vote against this. However, the measures we fight for is the working class taking control of our lives. We fight for the public ownership under democratic workers' control of the top 150 companies and banks. We call for a new mass working class party to be built that will enact such policies. I finally end by saying the Socialist Party exists only to end exploitation and oppression of working class people everywhere in the world.